The person who seems to have everything may be fighting a battle you cannot see. The house on Willow Street was the kind of house people noticed. It was large, beautiful, and always perfectly maintained. There was a green lawn in front, flowers along the walkway, and warm lights glowing through the windows every evening. Inside lived Ethan, his wife Sophia, and their two sons, Noah and Lucas. From the outside, they seemed to have everything. Ethan owned a successful business in the city. Sophia was elegant, kind, and always beautifully dressed. Noah was 17 and doing well at school. Lucas was 12, energetic and cheerful. They went on vacations. They celebrated birthdays in expensive restaurants. Their home was filled with laughter whenever guests visited. People often looked at them and said, "They have such a perfect life." And Ethan would smile. "Yeah," he would say. "We're very lucky." But there was something no one knew. Ethan wasn't okay. Every morning, Ethan woke up at 5:30. He would lie still in bed for a few moments, staring at the ceiling. Sophia was usually still asleep beside him. He would quietly get dressed, walk downstairs, and sit alone at the kitchen table. The house was silent. No children, no television, no phone calls. Just Ethan, and his thoughts. He would make himself a cup of coffee. Sometimes he drank it. Sometimes he simply watched it grow cold. Then, at exactly 7 o'clock, he would hear footsteps on the stairs. Lucas would run into the kitchen. "Dad." Ethan would immediately smile. "Morning, buddy. Can you drive me to school today?" Of course. Lucas would start talking about everything that had happened the day before. A football game. A funny teacher. Something his friend had said. Ethan listened carefully. He always listened. But sometimes, while his son was talking, Ethan's mind was somewhere else. Bills. Employees. The business. His mother's medical expenses. And a problem he hadn't told anyone about. A problem that had been growing for months. One evening, Ethan came home later than usual. Sophia was sitting at the dining table with dinner already served. "You're late," she said gently. "I know. I'm sorry." She looked at him carefully. "You've been working a lot lately." Ethan pulled out a chair. "Just a busy week." Sophia smiled. "You've been saying that for 6 months." Ethan looked down. "I'll slow down soon." She reached across the table and touched his hand. "You don't have to do everything alone." He smiled. "I know. But he didn't. At least, he didn't know how to tell her. The next morning, Ethan received an email. He stared at the screen for several minutes. The company's biggest client was leaving. If he couldn't find another major contract within the next few months, he would have to let several employees go. Maybe even close the company. For years, Ethan had worked to build that business. He had started with almost nothing. He couldn't bear the thought of losing it. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was the people. People who had trusted him. People who had families. People who had worked beside him for years. He closed his laptop. Then he looked at the family photograph on his desk. Sophia was smiling. Noah was laughing. Lucas was holding up 2 fingers behind Ethan's head. Ethan smiled for a moment. Then his eyes became wet. He quickly looked away. That afternoon, Ethan picked Lucas up from school. Lucas climbed into the car. "Dad, you look tired." Ethan laughed. "Do I?" "Yes." Lucas studied his face. "You have those lines again." "What lines?" "Those lines between your eyebrows." Ethan touched his forehead. "These?" "Yes." Lucas smiled. "You should smile more." Ethan laughed. "Okay, doctor." Lucas leaned back in his seat. "Dad, are you happy?" The question caught Ethan off guard. He looked at his son. "Of course I am." "Really?" Ethan nodded. "Really?" Lucas smiled. "Good." Then he started talking about his football practice. Ethan listened. But the question stayed with him. "Are you happy?" He didn't know the answer. That evening, the family had dinner together. Sophia had prepared Ethan's favorite meal. Noah was telling a story about school. Lucas was arguing that he was old enough to have his own phone. Everyone was laughing. Ethan watched them. This was everything he had ever wanted. A loving wife, 2 healthy sons, a beautiful home, a successful career. And yet, there was a heaviness inside him that he couldn't explain. Sophia noticed. She always did. Later that night, after the boys had gone to bed, she found Ethan sitting alone in the living room. The lights were off. Only the lamp beside the sofa was on. She sat next to him. "You don't have to pretend with me." Ethan didn't answer. Sophia waited. Finally, he whispered, "I'm scared." She looked at him. "Of what?" He swallowed. "I'm scared I'm going to lose everything." Sophia's expression softened. "What happened?" Ethan told her everything. The lost client, the financial problems, the possibility of closing the company, the employees who might lose their jobs, and how terrified he was that he wouldn't be able to protect his family. When he finished, Sophia took his hand. "Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want you to worry." She smiled sadly. "You thought carrying it alone would make it easier." Ethan looked down. "I thought I had to be strong." Sophia leaned closer. "You don't have to be strong every second of every day." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in months, he let them fall. The next morning, something was different. Ethan still had problems. The company was still struggling. Nothing had magically changed, but he wasn't carrying everything alone anymore. Sophia helped him review their finances. They decided what they could cut back on. They postponed their vacation. They stopped unnecessary spending. And Ethan spoke honestly with his business partner. For the first time, he asked for help instead of pretending he had everything under control. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. One of Ethan's old clients heard about his situation. The client offered him a new contract. It wasn't enough to solve every problem, but it was enough to keep the company alive. Ethan accepted. Slowly, things began to improve. Not overnight, not perfectly, but little by little. Months later, Ethan was sitting at the same kitchen table. The same house. The same coffee. But this time, he wasn't alone. Lucas was doing homework beside him. Noah was looking for something in the refrigerator. Sophia was making tea. The house was noisy, messy, imperfect, and beautiful. Ethan looked around and smiled. He finally understood something. For months, people had looked at his life and thought he had everything. They saw the house, the business, the vacations, the family photographs. They never saw the sleepless nights, the fear, the pressure, the moments when he sat alone in his car before coming home, just so his children wouldn't see how worried he was. They never saw the battles he was fighting inside his own mind. And perhaps that was true for everyone. The woman smiling at the grocery store might be going through a divorce. The man laughing with his friends might be struggling to pay his bills. The successful businessman might be terrified of failure. The mother who looks calm might have cried herself to sleep the night before. We often look at someone's life from the outside and compare it to our own. We think they have it easier. We think they're happier. We think they have everything we wish we had. But we see only a small part of their story. We see the smile, but not the tears behind it. We see the success, but not the sacrifices. We see the beautiful house, but not the sleepless nights inside it. So before you compare your life to someone else's, remember this: you never know what someone is fighting behind a smile. And the person who seems to have everything may simply be very good at hiding the things they are struggling to survive. Sometimes, the kindest thing we can do is stop comparing, stop judging, and simply remember, everyone is fighting a battle you cannot see. The end.